Welcome back, my financiers in training. Welcome back to another episode of the Do Different Better show, where we talk about wealth, wisdom, and money moves, making finance simple for everyday people like you. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, CEO of Social Impact Now and managing director of the Integrated Capital Fund. Thanks for rolling with me today. In today's episode, we are going to be diving into a topic where it has just absolutely shifted and changed people's lives. It has helped them to raise millions of dollars without stepping one foot into a bank, and that is crowdfunding, also known as crowd raising. Whether you're trying to start a business, pay for a life event, or build something beautiful with your community, crowdfunding is a powerful tool if you know how to work it. So, first, in this first segment, I'm going to talk about what is crowdfunding and why it actually works. So, first, let's start up. What is crowdfunding? At its core, crowdfunding is the act of raising small amounts of money from a large number of people, usually online, to fund a project, a business, a cause, or even a personal event like your car going kaput. There's platforms like GoFundMe and WeFunder. These are all crowdfunding platforms. You may have heard of them but didn't know what they do. But let's go one step deeper. Crowdfunding isn't just about fundraising, it's a community based finance instrument. In the age of passing the hat of the church, asking neighbors to pitch in for a block party, or selling plates to raise money for someone's surgery, it's people putting their dollars behind their belief in you or just their general support of you or the thing that you are putting forward. So here's a little history. Crowdfunding isn't new, it's just been digitized. It actually goes back centuries, like community barn raisings, Susu savings groups in the African and Caribbean communities, or Tanda savings in Latino cultures. It's been about people helping people. But the digital age gave it one big glow up. The first modern major crowdfunding campaign was in 1997 when fans of the British rock band Marillion raised $60,000 online to fund a tour. From there, platforms like Artist Share, Indiegogo, which was in 2008, Kickstarter in 2009, and GoFundMe in 2010 brought crowdfunding to the mainstream. Then in 2012, the Jobs Act changed the game. It allowed for equity crowdfunding, where regular people could legally invest in businesses, not just donate. So that's huge. So, what does crowdfunding actually look like? Let me give you a few examples across different scenarios. So, here's the first one. There's a personal need. A mom in North Carolina used GoFundMe to raise $30,000 after a car accident left her unable to work. Her community, church, and even strangers pitched in to help cover bills while she recovered. Number two, small business. A Black owned vegan bakery in Detroit raised $85,000 on Kickstarter to open a storefront. They pre sold cupcakes, branded t shirts, and even gave naming rights to new flavors. A third option is creative projects. A Minneapolis filmmaker crowdfunded $40,000 for a short film on Indigenous storytelling. She offered signed scripts, screenings, and cultural workshops. The fourth option is community campaigns. In New Orleans, a neighborhood crowdfunded nearly $200,000 through IOB.org to build a public green space after a grocery store closed, creating a food desert. These aren't just dollar signs, they're stories. They're people using digital tools to reclaim power, agency, and possibility. So, now let's talk about why crowdfunding has become such a vital tool, especially for underestimated communities and non traditional entrepreneurs. Here's why it hits: it's fast. You can launch a campaign in 24 hours. It's a low barrier, no need for perfect credit, and no pitch to a bank or an investor. It also validates demand. If folks are willing to support it now, that says something. It builds your audience while funding your dream, and it's rooted in relationship, not gatekeeping. So now let's talk about the types of crowdfunding. There are four main types of crowdfunding that you should know. Each one has its own vibe and use case. The first is donation based. People give money out of generosity, expecting nothing in return. This is great for using it for paying medical bills, funeral expenses, or community needs. There are platforms like GoFundMe, Give Butter, even Facebook fundraising. Number two, rewards based. People contribute and receive a product, service, or a perk. This is great to use when you're launching a new product, or it's a creative project, or you're trying to generate pre sales. Some platforms for that is Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Number three is equity based. People are actually investing in the business and receive a share of ownership. This is great for to use for startups who are trying to scale, food businesses, and real estate. Those platforms are Republic or Mainvest or Webfunder. Then there's debt. People lend you money with the expectation of getting paid back with some amount of interest. It might be low, but this is used for business expansion or using for needing equipment. There are great platforms like Honeycomb and Kiva that do this. But here's a pro tip: find the one that fits you, your network, and your story. Don't try to run a donation campaign for a for profit business. People need clarity and transparency. So let's bust a few myths about crowdfunding real quick. Myth number one: if you build it, they will come. The truth is, you have to promote it and they will come. Don't expect people to find your campaign magically. Myth number two: only celebrities go viral. The truth is actually authenticity is your superpower. Viral isn't required, consistency is. Myth number three: crowdfunding is begging. No, it's not. You're inviting people to invest in your purpose, and that is noble. And the last one: I can't crowdfund and seek other funding. That's not necessarily true. Crowdfunding can help unlock more money like grants, loans, and investors, and it also shows traction, right? So you can use your crowdfunding as sort of the test or pilot that demonstrates that there is demand, that what you're offering people want, which is going to look very attractive to bankers and to investors to say that I've raised this on my own from my community and my community believes in me and there's a demand for what I'm offering. So, now let's talk about why crowdfunding matters right now. Crowdfunding is more relevant now than it ever has, and here's why. Not only is there a gender wealth gap, there's a racial wealth gap. Black and brown entrepreneurs are three times less likely to get bank funding due to different kinds of rules and regulations, and just quite frankly, people discounting them and their ideas because they don't understand them. Also, there's student debt. Millennials and Gen Zers are bootstrapping new ventures with zero financial cushion. So they're leveraging crowdfunding as a way to be able to close that financial gap to get their dreams started. The next reason is cultural shifts. We're moving towards collective action and decentralized finance and digital first movements, right? So, not necessarily relying on the traditional banking system to be able to help get our community needs met, our business needs met, or our individual needs met. And then finally, community care. In a system that often fails us, people are turning to each other in order to survive and thrive. Crowdfunding lets us rewrite all of the rules. So, let's recap. Crowdfunding is community powered, it's digital first, it's accessible to almost anyone, it's a legit way to fundraise or raise capital, and not just a side hustle, it is a strategy, right? And so you should approach it as such. And when it's done right, it builds more than just money, it builds a movement and bringing your community together. Coming up next, we're going to talk about what makes a crowd campaign actually work, the opportunities, the challenges, the mistakes to avoid, and the magic of building trust with your crowd. You're listening to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and we're just getting started. So stick with me, and I'll see you after the break. Hey, y'all. You're still rocking with the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and we're diving deep into crowdfunding and how it may work for you. In segment one, we got into what crowdfunding is and why it matters, but now we need to have a real conversation because while crowdfunding can be powerful, it's not at all like donations. Let's talk about the truth behind the opportunity. So, let's first start off about what's great about crowdfunding because there's a lot of upside. And if you approach it with the right mindset and prep, you can be very, very successful. So, first, there's a low barrier to entry. You don't need a perfect credit score. You don't have to have any credit score really to do crowdfunding. You don't need a bank account necessarily, but you will have some place that you need to deposit the funds into. And you don't necessarily need a venture capitalist on speed dial or a rich aunt or uncle. All you need is a really compelling and truthful story and a decent internet connection and a network to share and support. Number two, market validation. If you are willing to fund your ideas, especially if people are willing to fund your ideas, especially strangers, it proves that there's a demand. That can be gold. Whether you're launching a product or testing a concept, crowdfunding is instant feedback. Three, built in marketing. Every person who donates is also someone who now knows your brand or your story. It's great for PR, lead generation, and brand loyalty all rolled up into one place. Four, community ownership and empowerment. Especially in equity crowd raising, folks aren't just donating, they are actually investing. They are a part of your story. And that's how you're going to build collective support and collective wealth. And lastly, five, it is democratizing access to capital. Crowdfunding is often the only capital pathway for some women entrepreneurs, rural based entrepreneurs, Black and Brown entrepreneurs, disabled founders, formerly incarcerated individuals, and others locked out of traditional finance systems. Now, let's talk about the real limitations. I have to be honest. Crowdfunding is not a magic ATM that just prints money. It comes with a real effort and emotional weight and risk. Number one, it is time intensive AF. Okay. I'm just telling you, I always tell founders do not even think about using crowdfunding if you do not have a crowd, right? That's the first thing above anything else. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Running a campaign is a full time job. You're going to be constant emailing. You're going to constantly be DMing. You're going to be posting. You're going to be updating. You're going to be managing donors. Most successful campaigns are prepped 6 to 8 weeks before they even launch and then run 30 to 60 days. So you really want to schedule when you do a crowd raise to make sure that it actually works with the timing of the business. For example, you don't want to be doing a crowd fund or a crowd raise and you're a retail shop right before the holidays. You're going to be busy doing selling phenomenally during the holidays because I know you because you've been listening to the show, right? So that is not going to be the time. You maybe want to think about doing a crowd raise during your slowest periods of the year, of the season, or of the year, right? Number two, emotional labor. To raise money, you have to tell your story. And this means being very vulnerable and transparent and often sharing a personal hardship. That can be beautiful, but it can also be exhausting, especially telling that story over and over and over again, or even seeing that the story is being told over and over and over again on the website, on email, on social media platforms. So just be mindful of that, especially if your story is particularly painful for you, right? Or it involves other people, maybe your children or other relatives. So you want to just be mindful of that. Number three, there are no guarantees. Most platforms operate on an all or nothing model, especially Kickstarter. If you don't hit your goal, you don't get a penny. It doesn't matter how much you raised. And even on flexible platforms like GoFundMe, people often raise less than what they actually need. So, and you don't want to keep coming back to the well, right? I wouldn't say that once you do it once, you can't do it again. But once you've done it once, you want to have some space, maybe as much as a year before you do another crowd raise on a platform. Four, public pressure. Everyone can now see how your campaign is doing. If it stalls, if it fails, that's also public too. You have to be okay with that level of transparency and just know that that's a possibility. And then finally, there are fees, and those fees can add up. You might have to pay 3 to 8% in platform and processing fees, plus credit card transaction fees. So you want to make sure that you budget that from the beginning. One of the things that I tell founders is, if you are looking at this as a vehicle to raise money, particularly from an equity investment perspective, you should not consider this unless you are raising at least $150,000. And the reason why I say that is some of these platforms, the cost has come down considerably, but some of these platforms, between legal fees that you may have to pay, accounting fees that you have to pay to make sure that everything is set up correctly, and then being on the platform, as I mentioned, the fees on the platform, as well as processing fees from people using their credit cards to give you donations or investments or purchase, you're now in for about 20 or $30,000. So let's say, for example, you're raising 50,000, you end up with 10 or 15,000 in fees. Now you're back down to $35,000, right? So you have to over anticipate what you might need based on all of those things. So as you, hopefully this example demonstrates to you, is you really should not think about this as a platform for your business unless you're raising over 100,000. And I would say the base is 150,000, because once you get the fees involved, you're now maybe down to 130,000. So if your raise that you needed to raise was 100, you raise 130, you're sitting in a good spot with a little bit of extra left over after you've paid all of the fees and your lawyers and your accountants to make sure that everything is set up, and you're saying things in the right way, right? So now let's talk about campaign success and what actually makes it work. So, what separates successful campaigns from flops is there is a secret sauce, right? And I've talked a little bit about this and intimated a little bit about this earlier, but now I'm going to get really specific. So, the first thing is, have an authentic, compelling story. Why you, why now, and why should people care? Be clear, be honest, and emotionally connect with your crowd, right? Good storytelling converts. And if you need help with how you should tell that story, ask your friends, ask strangers, tell them the story. If they start to lean in, if they start to ask questions, you know you've got a good story. But if people start like getting distracted, they're picking up their phone, it's not that the story is bad, it's not being told in a compelling way. So don't think that you have a bad story. Reimagineer how you might want to tell the story, but your story is always going to be best when it's rooted in your personal experience. Think about on Shark Tank. Almost everybody on Shark Tank talks about, hey, this was my problem, or this was my issue, or this was my mom's problem, or this was my brother's problem. And this is what led me to creating this. As soon as people start talking about the personal connection to the situation or the business that they've created and the problem that they were looking to solve, everybody starts to lean in, yourself included. You're like, oh, I want to hear more about this person's story, right? This is no different. So, number two, high quality visuals. A short video, I would say 60 to 90 seconds, branded graphics, and a clean campaign goes a long way. You don't need a high profile film crew, but just clarity and consistency. I've seen full movies shot on cell phones. So you can do this from your cell phone, but what you want to do is make sure that there is some sort of consistency about the look and the feel across everything that's going to go on the platform, from the still photography to the any kind of video that you're going to provide on the platform, down to if there's any printed materials, whether it's, that you're selling t-shirts, that they're branded, but that everything looks consistent. The human eye is an amazing thing. The brain wants to look for inconsistencies, and it moves at lightning speed. And when it's looking for those inconsistencies, it's looking for a reason to either positively connect or negatively connect in split seconds. So the more you can have consistency across the colors that you're using, the type of photography that you're using, if you're using black and white photography, make sure everything is black and white, because that's now establishing the brand of your story. Maybe not the brand of your company, although it should connect to the brand of the company, but the brand of the story, right? So clarity and consistency. Number three, being realistic and having transparent goals. Don't ask for $250,000 with no breakdown of how you plan to spend that money. Show where every dollar is going and break it into milestones if you need to, if that feels right or if that feels appropriate. Let's say it's an effort with your church. Say, hey, and with once we raise $5,000, we'll be able to do this. Once we raise $10,000, we'll be able to do this. Once we raise $15,000, we'll be able to do this. Or you can say, hey, this building that we're building or we're renovating, this is the timeline. These are the different expenses. We need to pay for an architect. We need to pay for a cleanup crew. We need to pay for concrete pouring. Whatever those is, give your idea. You don't have to get into all the weeds and put up a spreadsheet, but at least give people like a 5,000-foot level of what the money is for and how it's actually going to move the needle on whatever it is that you're working on. So, next is the last part, and the part that people or the second to last part is warming up the audience. Successful campaigns don't launch to crickets. They build over some type of time. You need to pre-launch email list, warm leads, and confirmed early donors to create momentum. So once again, I don't know if you've ever been in a room or if you've ever had to do a speech or you've ever had to ask questions in the middle, in the front, in a public setting. But a lot of times what people will do is they have what are called plants, and they say, hey, I'm going to be doing this talk or this speech. I would like you to ask this question to get the crowd going to asking questions. Well, crowdfunding is very similar. You want to have a couple of people, or even 5 or 10 people if you can, but you want to have at least a couple of people who are going to be the first dollars in, and that they're going to be on the platform. You might even have to tell them, okay, I want to remind you today is the day that you're going to do your pledge on the platform. Just because, first of all, we all know the first one is the hardest one. So if you can show people who are watching on the platform, oh, look, she's already got her first one. Okay, that legitimizes your story, right? So you want to do that work up front before you even launch the campaign. And then finally, you need to be doing regular updates and continuous engagement. Do not ghost your supporters. Post progress behind the scenes, content, and your stretch goals. Let folks be part of your journey. That's what they want. That's what they want to see. They want to be connected with you, and that's their way of their connecting, whether they're down the block or they're in another country, right? Whether they know you or they don't know you. Everybody wants to be part of something successful. So now, let's talk about the common mistakes and the ones particularly that cost you money. So, I want to hopefully save you a lot of pain, and here are the top mistakes people make that cause their campaigns to fail. Number 1, launching without a plan. I know that has been a consistent story throughout every episode that is on the Do Different Better show. Craft a plan. Craft a plan. Craft a plan. Crowdfunding is a campaign, so you need to treat it like one. If you don't have a content calendar, email strategy, and timeline, you're just winging it, and that's really risky and increases your likelihood exponentially of not being successful. And we don't do that here, right? We're winners. Number 2, that there's no audience. You can't rely on strangers. 80% of your first $5,000 will come from your personal network. If you haven't built that up already, you're already behind. 3, a weak or no story at all. If your pitch reads like a flyer or a resume, it won't connect with people, and people are just going to left swipe. People fund people, right? People believe in people. So make it personal. Next, asking without giving, right? You've got to offer something in return, even if it's just updates or shout outs or early access to something. Show that you appreciate people that made the time and spent their hard-earned money because they didn't have to do that, right? Even if it's an investment, there's plenty of things that people can invest in. They don't have to invest in you. So really thank people, post their thank you. Now, some people might want to be anonymous, and that's okay. What I recommend in those instances is say, hey, we just got another anonymous donor. Even if somebody tells you specifically that they want to be anonymous, honor that. Sometimes, like on the mighty We have a platform here in Minnesota called GiveMN, and people can anonymously support. You won't see their names at all, but calling them out, they're going to know, right? They're going to know the time that they give you, the time that they put in the investment, and when you post it, hey, this anonymous person gifted this much or invested this much. We're so grateful. Thank you so much. They're going to see it. They're going to notice, and it's going to be great for you. So to have that appreciation. And then finally, there's no follow up. Post campaign silence is a trust killer. People want to know what happened. Did you launch? Did you ship the product? Did you reach a milestone? Whatever it is that you promised in the campaign that you were going to do, whether win, lose, or draw, if you were successful, if you fell short of the goal, if you like decided to shift and not do it at all because you got an amazing gift or infusion of capital, let people know, especially if you are closing out the campaign. Follow up with people and give them a way to stay connected. If you have a newsletter, ask them to sign up for your newsletter. Even if you don't have a newsletter yet, say, hey, we're expecting to have a newsletter in 3 months. Get on the list now so we can make sure that you don't miss anything, any other updates, right? So now I'm going to give you some real talk from the field. Let me share 2 quick stories, one success and one that wasn't as quite successful, to show you how it actually plays out. So first, we're going to talk about Jessica's mobile coffee cart. Jessica is a Black woman living in Atlanta. She raised $18,000 to launch a mobile coffee cart focused on workforce training for re-entry folks. She had a clear mission. She had a clean landing page. She had an email list of almost 800 people, and she messaged everyone personally. Well, guess what? Jessica hit her goal in 28 days and now employs 3 people part-time. Now let's talk about the not so successful story. Marcus's streetwear brand. Marcus tried to raise $50,000 on Kickstarter for his street line wear. Not bad, right? But he didn't have a prototype. He had no video, he had no list, and he had no updates. Now, he raised $732, mostly from his cousins. The lesson here, crowdfunding doesn't replace hustle, it amplifies it, right? So just imagine if if he had cultivated a list first and then reached out to all those people, or had a mechanism by which his cousins could amplify and share with their friends and maybe make a little contest. Which cousin is going to refer the most people? But he still was going to need images. He still was going to need a prototype to show people what was it going to look like, feel like, sound like, all the things, right? So let's talk a little bit about the psychology of crowdfunding. It is invisible work, right? Here's something we don't talk enough about is the psychological weight of asking for help in public, especially for women, for first generation founders. We've been taught to be self-reliant, to grind in silence. So this type of public ask can feel like exposure, or make it feel like you're failing before you even start it. But I want you to listen to me and listen to me clearly. Vulnerability builds trust. When you stand in your story, it gives other people permission to believe in your vision, and that is powerful, right? So now I want to just do a recap, right? So let's sum this all up. Crowdfunding is accessible, but it's not necessarily easy. It takes planning, people, and persistence. A good story and a warmed up audience are going to be everything that can contribute to your success. Success comes from strategy and not luck. I know that you can do this. You've got to prep like you're launching a product, because you are. So I just want you to think about all of that and think about, do you really have the time to do it? And maybe it's something you work on and saying, hey, it's now what this air show is going to air in June. You might say, hey, it's June right now. I don't have the time because I'm prepping for the holiday season. I'm obviously not going to have time because I'm going to be selling in the holiday season. So I'm going to start planning my crowdfunding campaign for January of next year. That is okay. I would highly recommend it. So use this time now. You're going to, with the intention of building your email audience, figuring out what the story is going to be, figuring out how much you're going to ask, and figuring out what platform you're going to use and how are you going to, what are the mechanisms or platforms you're going to use to help digitize or create automations as much as possible to run this campaign, right? If you do all those things, I guarantee it's going to take a lot less work to build your campaign, to do your campaign and execute on your campaign when it comes, whether it's January or whenever that is, but you're also contributing to a high percentage of success. You're going to be a high probability of success. So now that we've wrapped that up, I want to tell you what's coming up. Coming up in segment 3, I'm going to walk you through the tools and platforms that you need to know and how to prepare your campaign like a pro and where to go for support, templates, and coaching. If you're serious about raising that capital, you're going to want to take notes. So don't go anywhere. Come back and see me after the break where I'm going to show you how to do different better and get you on the right track. Welcome back to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, your go-to for financial wisdom and money moves. Now it's time to get tactical. You've heard the what and the why, and now we're going to get into the how of crowdfunding. All right. The first thing that we've got to really think about is what is the right platform for what you are trying to do, right? So let's talk platforms. Choosing the right one isn't just about popularity. It's about the alignment of your goals and your audience and the kind of capital that you're trying to raise and the purpose, right? So here is a quick rundown by category. So the first one is donation-based crowdfunding platforms, right? These are for your personal use or community cause or a nonprofit project. Like I talked about, you have an unexpected medical bill, maybe an unexpected car expense, your manifold blew up, right? Your brakes went out, and you just don't have it, but you have a community that you can tap into. And once again, this is about people giving you money without any expectation of anything back. They are gifting you this money. Now, the thing that you have to remember, and you might need to tell the people that you are crowdfunding from in this particular instance, is it is not tax deductible. It is only tax deductible if this is for a nonprofit 501c3 organization. If that's where the money is going, then it is tax deductible. Anything else is just a gift that has no tax implications whatsoever. It is a gift. It is as if you were giving somebody on the corner money. It is no different. There's nothing that they get in return. I mean, nothing that you're going to get in return. And there's nothing that you can declare on your taxes as the giver or as the giver. Okay. So some of the top platforms for this are GoFundMe, GiveButter, and Fundly. There's some other ones that are out there. I'm just giving you a short list for you to consider. Okay. Here are the pros. They're very easy to set up. You can launch them really, really quickly, and they're really great with social media, right? They've got some great integrations that you can use where you can either post from inside the platform or you can integrate the platform. So when you make posts in the platform, they'll automatically shoot to your social media channels, right? Now, here are the cons. There could be donation fatigue, right? Meaning, when we say donation fatigue, like if you're doing a campaign and there are all these other campaigns that are happening, like what happened with Hurricane Katrina or there's a natural disaster, people might be tired of giving and they may not have it to give. They've already given what they have to give, right? Another con is that there's no return for the donors, right? Once again, there is no tax benefit, which is sometimes why people give. Yes, they're giving from the goodness of their heart, but they're also like, hey, I need to get a deduction anyway. This will be great. It's a 2-for-1. I'm giving to something that's important to me and valuable to me, and I'm getting a tax write-off, right? Once again, they're not going to get that benefit. And it's very limited if you're going to use it for your business, right? Um, you want to be mindful of that. So it may not necessarily be based on what you're looking for your business, if for you to be on one of those platforms. So now let's move on to the next platform, reward based crowdfunding. This is really great if you are trying to launch a new product or launch in a new community. If this is for a creative project like a film project or some big installation that you're working on, um, this is also great for early stage business ideas or a prototype. You're like, hey, I don't know if people are going to want this thing that I've created. It's the first of its kind. I want to put it out into marketplace and see what people are thinking, right? If it has value and if people want it, right? Some great platforms for that kind of situation are Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Once again, there are other platforms that are out there. These are just a couple, so I encourage you to go and research and find them all. Um, the pros for these platforms are they're a great marketing tool. They do have some built-in audience already. There are people who are already connected to the platform, either by way of other campaigns that they're doing, or they're purposely on the site because they're always looking for new opportunities to give, right? But they're also great for validating demand on your product, service, idea, prototype, whatever. But here are some of the cons. There's no all, they are all or nothing models, meaning that if you do not raise, let's say your campaign is for $10,000 and you raise 5,000, they don't pay out the 5,000. So either you raise the 10,000 or you get nothing, right? So you just want to be mindful and think about what's your probability of success. And if you think that you have a high probability of success, then this isn't that big of a deal for you, right? But it's also creating intense pressure to deliver on the perks, right? So I remember one of the local organizations here called the Coven. They're a femme forward co-working space. And in the early days of them getting going, and they used crowd raising as a means of raising money to infuse into the business. They offered some really simple and I thought creative things that I never would have thought of as far as rewards. So one of them was their summer playlist, right? So for $25, they would send you their summer playlist. Now, that's not a big deal. And do you need to pay somebody to have $25 to pay somebody $25 to create a playlist for you? No, but this playlist was curated by this community that represented a particular set of values and a particular vibe. And so people wanted to know, like, what was their vibe, and they could support the community as well. Another thing that they did was they had bumper stickers. So the bumper stickers were like 25 or $50. The other thing that they sold was a personal invitation to their opening event. So those obviously were higher ticketed items. I think they were like $1,500. And for $1,500, you were going to get an invitation to this VIP event that they were hosting, right? So there are lots of creative ways without doing a lot of effort or a lot of work where you could be able to give rewards to the people on your rewards based crowdfunding campaign. So, next, we're going to talk about equity crowdfunding. This is really great for startups or companies looking to scale their business or mission driven ventures. And maybe it's a mission driven venture that's looking to scale, that's also a startup, right? That's okay. So some of the top platforms are WeFunder, that's WE Funder, Republic, Mainvest, and Start Engine. Again, there's some other platforms that are out there. These are some of the more commonly known ones. I've actually known the folks at Republic when they actually launched years ago. So it's great that they are still around doing some really great work. The pros are this is for raising some serious capital. And I usually mean like 50,000, 100,000, 150,000, $250,000. And it's really about building community ownership, right? Now, here are some of the cons. The cons are the legal paperwork and ongoing reporting with a public capitalization table. And we've talked about capitalization table in some other episodes, but that is the table, and it's a spreadsheet, not an actual table, but a spreadsheet that says how much each particular investor in the business owns, how much they put in, what the value of that is, and how much equity they get as a result of that investment, right? That's your capitalization table. Then finally, there's debt based crowdfunding or crowd lending. This is really great for revenue generating businesses that need a loan alternative. Maybe they're a formerly incarcerated person. Maybe you are a person that has very not so great credit, and you know that there is no way, there's no snowball chance in the universe that you're going to be able to get a bank loan. So debt-based crowdfunding is really great for that. Some of the platforms are Honeycomb Credit and Kiva. I know the folks over there as well. Great. I've had the opportunity to work with them behind the scenes on some different opportunities. Really great platforms. The pros are that there is no equity loss. This is our fixed repayment terms, relatively friendly. I would say often better than a bank, but not necessarily 0% or 1% interest, right? They have to pay for the platform and platform improvements. So there are fees. So just understand that. The cons are that the loan repayments begin really quickly and they may require personal guarantees. And a personal guarantee is when you're putting up some kind of collateral. It could be your car, it could be your house that says, if I don't pay this loan, you are entitled to this particular asset or property, right? So you just want to be mindful of that. So you're going to want to prep before your launch, right? So let me hit you with the truth. Successful crowdfunding starts before you put a single link on the page. You need a full campaign strategy. So that starts with one, how are you going to build your audience? Build a warm list of 100 to 300 people minimum. I like to say for every $1,000 you want to raise, you need 100 people in your community or on your email list. So that just gives you a rough framing. And I've heard from other people, I've truth tested this with people who've been successful with their crowd raises, and that number seems to be on average, plus or minus, a percent, 10%. That's a rough estimate, right? So for every $1,000 you want to raise, you need 100 people in your community that you're going to reach out to. Does not mean that all 100 of those people are going to give. It's working the law of averages, that out of that, probably 10% are going to give, and they're going to probably give 10% of that, of what you want. So that's how you can start to build. How are you going to get to the number that you're trying to be successful in raising? You're also going to want to use email, social media, in-person events, whatever you have at your disposal. Start talking about your idea 2 to 3 weeks before your launch, or start talking about your campaign 2 to 3 weeks before you actually launch. So that could be posting it on social media. That could be maybe you want to come on my show and talk about it. Let me know. But these are all the different ways that you can leverage that. Number two, campaign page essentials. Have a clear story, your who, your what, your why, your how much, and what for. Create some strong visuals like photographs, infographics, mood boards, whatever. A 1 to 2 minute video that shows your face or the people that you're working with, your passion, and your plan, right? Have a frequently asked questions, FAQs, for any common questions or concerns that you might hear from people, right? Once again, these are all things that build trust. Number three, you want to build a budget breakdown. Be specific. Where's the money going? Is it going to inventory, rent, legal fees, insurance, intellectual property filings, whatever, right? Include a chart or breakdown of how all of this is going to be organized. Number four is your pre-launch hype. Send a launch countdown to your list. Create teaser posts and sneak peeks. Ask about 5 to 10 close supporters to pledge to the campaign in the first 24 hours. So now really quickly, as we're heading into the finish line, I want to give you a sample of a 6-week crowdfunding timeline. So here's the plug and play to prep your campaign like a boss. So week one, set a goal, choose the platform, outline the story. Week two, create visuals, shoot the intro video. Once again, it can be on your phone, outside, in your house, doesn't matter. Week three, build an email list, a prep page content, and research rewards and perks that you might be able to offer. Week four, launch your teaser campaign, gather testimonials, test the landing page. Week five, pre-launch your comms, identify early funders, and week six is launch day. Push hard for the first 48 hours. Now, do I think you should do it in 6 weeks? No, I think you should do it with a much longer timeline so you can be really, really prepared and build alternate content. Build 3 or 4 videos so that you can have them in rotation. But if you're really crunched for time, you can do this in 6 weeks, right? So then you need a communication strategy. Email is king, social is king. So use both, right? Make sure you have a subject line. I'm building something and I want you to be the first to know. create that warmth, create that connection, right? But making sure that you're launching your emails, day one, it's live. Day three, give a progress report. Day five, meet our backers, right? People who have already invested, or your five secret people that you got to invest on the first day of the campaign, or donate on the first day of the campaign, and share the love. Ask folks to forward this to other people. So, as we're starting to close in, I want to tell you about something really, really important, and that's about the money. So let's talk about the money coming in, because the IRS doesn't care that it came from your cousin, your auntie, or a TikTok stranger. You need to understand the tax implications. So for a personal campaign, funds may be considered gifts, but be careful. Okay. Business campaigns, funds are generally treated as income, particularly if your business is set up as an LLC. It is counted towards your personal income. So you need to know that. Many platforms will send you a 1099K if you raise over $600 in a particular year. You're going to want to keep detailed records of who gave, how much, and when. A lot of these platforms will give that report to you, but you want to make sure you download a copy in case anything happens with the platform and it goes away, right? You also want to use maybe an online tool, and there's lots of great options going from most to least expensive. You can use QuickBooks, you can use Wave accounting, which is free to a certain level, or you can just use Google Sheets, right? And a Dropbox or DocHub to keep track of the receipts, right? Set up a dedicated business bank account before you launch, so you don't mix these funds with your personal funds or your business funds. And if you're doing equity crowd raising, consult with an accountant and a securities lawyer. If you do, if it can, I'm sorry, consult with an accountant and a securities lawyer. It's not the time to play around with compliance. You do not want the IRS coming for you. Okay. And as we get into the final countdown here, I want to tell you about where you can go get some help. There is score.org, which gives free business mentorship. There are SBDCs in your community. These are small business development corporations. Sometimes they're located at a university, sometimes they're located at a CDFI, but you want to look around and see where your local SBDC. There's a whole website for them. There's Main Street Alliance that can help you with policy and small business tools, right? So final tips, right, from the field. Let me hit you with some game, and I've learned and seen from the trenches. Stack your incentives, add stretch goals and limited time perks for them to create momentum. Use scarcity. People love FOMO, so let them know there's only 50 of these rewards that are available to create some urgency, right? And team up, partner with another influencer or local media to signal boosting. I already offered you can come on the show and we can talk about it, your crowdfunding opportunity. Final thoughts. Crowdfunding is more than just money. It's about belief. If you've got a dream and you're willing to work hard, the crowd can carry you further than you imagine. So now let's recap our strategy. Pick the right platform, prep your audience before you launch, tell your story that connects with the heart, treat your campaign like a campaign, and follow through like a CEO. All right? And that's a wrap for today's episode on the Do Different Better show. Whew, we have covered a lot: the what, the why, the how of crowdfunding. So now it's your turn to take that knowledge and do something great. Got questions or want feedback on your campaign? Hit me up on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can hit me on Instagram at Do Better with Elaine. On LinkedIn, Elaine Rasmussen. I'm the only Elaine Rasmussen, so I'm easy to find. Subscribe to the podcast, share it with other people, because when you win, we all win. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and I will see you next time for another round of wealth, wisdom, and money moves on the Do Different Better show.